approach works too. But we're here to talk fantasy hockey. And I think it's time for us to get to our top 10 right wings here. We've done every other position. I don't know why right wing was last, but here we are. You see some of the potential candidates up on the screen there. Let's get our situation going here and be ready to rock as we get situated. And yes, there is our board. So we got names, obviously, Kucherov, Pastrnak, Matthew Tkachuk, Mikko Rantanen. We all know those are going to be near the top of the list. Once you get past 5 or 6, though, I feel like it starts to get interesting. So without further ado, I mean, we know Kucherov and Pastrnak are your top 2 here, right? There's no debate about who's going to be 1, 2 of those 2.
No, I think Kucherov 1. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I have Mikko Rantanen at number 2.
I do as well.
Okay. Yeah. State of Survival, by the way, an Islanders fan, so keep that in mind in the future when we poop on the team. So
my apologies. Jeez.
So I mean, listen, they're a great fan base. I'll say it. They are a very, very good fan base. Yeah. They just, they deserve a break. Like, I know they made the conference finals recently, but
I went to Nassau Coliseum once. I sat 2 rows from the ice. I watched Montreal and the Islanders, of course. That barn was something, but it was $150 for 2 tickets. So great time. An arena literally in the middle of nowhere. But
it is an arena in the middle of nowhere. And the thing, the Nassau Coliseum had great sight lines. Like, no matter where you were in the building, you had a good seat. But if you were going to do something during the intermission, you had to pick one thing. You had to pick going to the bathroom, getting a beer or whatever, because it was one concourse. It would be so packed that it would literally take you the entire intermission to do the one task you were trying to accomplish.
But now they got UBS Arena now, so that's supposed to be a beautiful place. So I haven't gone out there yet. But do the Islanders, do they really need a break? I mean, they won 4 straight Stanley Cups. I know it was in the 80s, but they're like one of the last real dynasties of hockey. Do they really need a break?
So let's put it like this. I was born in 1983, and that was their last Stanley Cup. So, I mean, they're probably due.
I don't hate the Isles whatsoever. Being a Devils fan, I want to see them succeed as well. So I'm not throwing any jabs at State or Survival. If I was them, it's time to get rid of Teflon Lou and hit the road.
I think there are a lot of fans that would feel that way. I would be happy to move on from him coming up here in the coming couple of seasons. No New York Islanders really for the right wing category on this list. I know Matthew Barzal is eligible in some leagues. Top 15, you want to argue and maybe sure, but I don't think about top 10 there with Barzal. Back to the top 3 though. So Kucherov, Pastrnak, and Rantanen. Okay, so let's start this over. Those are the 3 in our top 3.
Yes.
Is it a consensus for Kucherov at 1, or is there any outlier there? Okay.
For me, it's Kucherov 1. I mean, he led the NHL in points, power play points, and
he had 100 assists.
Yeah. When you're drafting for your fantasy league, you want points. This is the guy you want on your team. If you're in top 5, top 6. He's one of the best out there, and he's going to be top line with Gensel and Brayden Point. I mean, you can't get any better than that. That'll probably be one of the best top lines in hockey if you think about it.
I tried to look and make an argument to put David Pastrnak number 1, but you just can't not have Kucherov number 1 for all the reasons you guys mentioned. And he's got, if you want to say him versus Pastrnak for 1 for 2, there's a little, Elias Lindholm's coming in. There's going to be some settle time there, getting acquainted. Point and Kucherov have played together. There's familiarity, and we've seen, like you said, 100 assists last year. Can't really ignore that. So now we get to number 2 and 3, which we've agreed is Pastrnak and Rantanen. Both of you have Rantanen as number 2.
Yes.
Let's hear it.
You look at, I'm not a big fan of Pasternak's lines, and I know he could just play, out of this world. But when you're on top line with Nathan McKinnon, you're going to be getting some points. And on top of that, he's a free agent next year. So he's going to play off, off his rocker. So that's why I have Rantanen at number 2.
Yeah, it just feels like a 110-point season, 55-plus goals for Rantanen. His centerman is better, right? So you have Elias Lindholm on one side, and then you have Nathan McKinnon on one. He's got a better deep pair on the power play as well, Cale Makar versus whoever is there in Boston. I know somebody's gonna Charlie McAvoy. Sorry, I don't want to disrespect him. It's just the upside is there. Colorado is still elite on home ice. They can score goals. They can pound their opponents. it's like at some point, I understand it's the player that you're looking at, but you have to look at the environment that the player is in. And I expect Colorado, yes, they'll be a good team, but again, they're going to trot those big boys out all the time because they literally don't have anybody else. There's not enough depth on that team. So on good nights, there might be close games. Maybe their best players don't play as much. But on nights where they need a goal, like Rantanen's playing 24, 25 minutes a night. So I can't pass up on that kind of value. Not at 2, not for a right winger.
I'm not, I had Pastrnak at 2 only because a lot of the mock drafts I've been doing lately, basically you can count your top 6 being McDavid 1, McKinnon 2, and then in some order of the next 4, Draisaitl, Kucherov, Pastrnak, and Austin Matthews. Somewhere in that next 4 that it goes. So because of that and Pastrnak consistently being there, I had him slightly higher. But I'm a big Mikko Rantanen fan. I've got no problem putting him number 2. He usually goes after that top 6. He goes in that next 3 or 4 usually. So I got no problem putting him up there for all the reasons you mentioned. You've got David Pastrnak 3. We'll see the chemistry that forms between him and Elias Lindholm if that's what they end up doing and coming out of camp with. But you can't. If this is one of your top 3 right wings, you're okay. You're in good shape to start. These are all guys that are going to go in the first round. 8-team league, 10-team league, 12-team league for sure. 8-team league, maybe one of those guys falls into like the second round with the very early portion. Any of these 3 in your top right side, you're okay.
Yeah, they'll probably be going around, what would you say, from 5 to 5 on? Because you think of the top 4 being McDavid, Draisaitl, McKinnon, Austin Matthews, probably your top 4 picks going, and then these guys will fall in line right after that.
Yeah, there's no way they're sticking around past pick 10.
Yeah,
if they are, grab one, but I don't think I don't think they are.
And there's no slight to Pastrnak either. Like if you draft Pastrnak, you're getting a guy that's second in shots on goals. He top 10 in goals and assists. I mean, you're getting a really good player. It's just we think that Mikko Rantanen right now, top line with McKinnon, who's top 3 player in fantasy, and then the being a free agent to me has to factor into this. I mean, this guy's going to be playing for his money.
Yeah, we're cherry picking the color of the Ferrari at this point. Like, do we want it red? Do we want it black? Do we want it yellow? It's still a Ferrari. That's what we're getting here. So there's nothing wrong with any of those 3.
Yeah, I mean this is your top tier here. Now for our 4th right wing, are we in agreement of Matthew Tkachuk being that 4th guy, or is there another candidate?
I had Zach Hyman.
No, I had Matthew Tkachuk there. I feel like that's a fair spot for him. Maybe the point totals, I don't know if they'll be as high. His shot volume is good, but he could also mix it up a little bit. He can go out and get you those penalty minutes because he's going to be running his mouth or doing something, chomping on that mouthpiece. Not as many block shots. He doesn't hit as much as his brother Brady does, but he can still properly fill a lot of categories. Whereas to me, I don't think Zach Hyman can do that. He's a very to me, I feel like he's a one-trick pony, which is scoring goals, which is the most important thing, obviously, in fantasy. But I need my top player to be able to fill out some other categories, and I'm not going to get that from Zach Hyman.
Hyman, because I had him 5th, so I mean, I assume that's probably where we're going to be slotting him. With everything you said about Tkachuk, and my question being, would you consider Tkachuk the bottom of the tier 1 of right wings or the top of tier 2 of the right wings? Do we slide him into that first class?
Bottom tier 1.
Bottom tier 1. I would agree. All right, so there we go. We got Tkachuk right there. So like I said, the first 5 I thought we were going to go relatively easy, and then I think it's going to become a real who's got who where. So we're okay with Zach Hyman 5 on the top line with McDavid, plays on that marvelous power play unit. No reason to not have him in the top 5. He's got left wing eligibility too. He was up there in the top 5 with the left wings as well last week, I believe. So,
yep, I can live with that.
All right, so here we go. Now we get to number 6. I put William Nylander there. I mean, he over the last few years, he's really proven it. I think he's a better right winger than Mitch Marner at this point. He's got over 40 goals the last 3 years. I love the production is there. I think at this point, Nylander has been going early to mid second round, late second round. He's somewhere in that mix. And I think if you miss out on those top few guys and you wait, he's definitely a good consolation prize.
I would feel better about Willie Nylander on this list. I have no problem putting him at 6. I want him to play the wing. And I know Toronto seems to be dead set on giving him a shot at center, which I'm sure he can handle. But the center position requires a ton of work, which is why I don't play the center position. I do sometimes, it's my Thursday night league, and it doesn't go well when I'm losing every faceoff. There are so many responsibilities that you need down the middle. You're basically facilitating the play. And I just think it's you have centerman in Toronto. I mean, say what you want about, John Tavares. He's still a centerman. And at that money, he's not a third pairing centerman. So I would like Willie Nylander to play on the wing, because I'm afraid if they put him at center, like, who's going to flank him on each side of the wing? Are you going to put Max Domi next to him? So who cares? Just put Domi down the middle anyways. Like, take some responsibility away from him and let him do what he does well anyways. There's no reason to saddle him with more kind of like responsibility here. You could have Willie Nylander on one side, you could have his brother on the other side, and then Tavares down the middle, or whatever concoction you want to come up with here, right? With, Nick Robertson, if anything but that. I don't like, and this is selfishly of you, I just don't want Willie Nylander to have more responsibilities, because I like him more as a winger.
See, that's the problem here, though, right? Like, he has the dual eligibility, but if he struggles, that's going to affect your fantasy team either way. And this is a guy who had 98 points last season, 38 power play points, 316 shots on goal. But if he's playing center and that kind of, lowers, he has a worse season than if he has a bad, not bad season, but if he, goes down from what he had this year, that's not good for you or your fantasy team, especially if you're picking him as one of your top tier picks in the, probably early second round. I have Sam Reinhart at number 6. What is that? Yeah, 6. Second in goals last season, 57. He'll be on that top line with Barkov and Carter Verhaeghe. That's who I got.
I have Sam Reinhart at 7. He had a really good year. I want to see him do it twice. That's kind of my thing here with him. That was an explosion. That was quite the explosion too. Florida's a good team.
Contract on top of that.
And look, he got his money. Good for him. But again, I feel like is that season an outlier? I don't know. Like, would he be just fine if he scored 40 goals? Like, yeah, that's still a lot of the NHL. But like,
he had 57 last year.
Yeah,
31 the year before that. That is quite the spike.
That's quite the spike. So I think he falls somewhere in between that. I think he's more of a 40-goal scorer than he is a 57-goal scorer. So I don't know if he's taking a step, but I do expect a little bit of regression there.
Also,
I don't see him
still good.
27 power play goals.
Yeah. Like he's a top 20 pick in my mind at any point, depending on what your league looks like. But like, is he better than all those guys ahead of him? Not really. Or at least I don't think he is.
I had Reinhart at 7 as well. So who did you have at 6? Well, let's you burying the leader. You had Nylander at 6 too. Yeah. Okay, so you're okay with
him. I just don't want him to play down the middle.
Now, question from the chat. She's from State of Survival. Mitch Marner should be ahead of Nylander. No. Not maybe 2 years ago, a year ago, but no, I don't know. Nylander just last year, he just blew me away. And I don't think Marner's going to be traded out of there. I think they're going to, Berube's going to try and get whatever he can get out of him to be better. But I mean, he's still pretty damn good. But I mean,
he's going to go all year fighting about that contract that he hasn't signed yet, which is going to weigh on him. He doesn't shoot the puck enough in my mind. He's more of an assist, like he's a playmaker for for Matthews. So in leagues where goals count, he's already behind Willie Nylander, because Willie Nylander shoots the puck more, scores more, all of that jazz. Even if he doesn't play with Matthews, it's fine. Willie Nylander will be the best player on his line. So that's no.
All right, so it sounds like we're going to throw Nylander 6, and then because Ann had Reinhart at 6 and we had him at 7. There we go, nice and easy. So here we go. So now, all right, we've got Nylander, we've got Sam Reinhart. We got to figure out who's going to be 8 now. And this is where I think we can start having, is it Marner? Does Jesper Bratt come into the conversation here? You know, a couple of suggestions was, another suggestion was Andrei Svechnikov, who I'm a big fan of. Anthony mentioned Wyatt Johnston earlier. So there's a lot of ways we can go here for our last 3. So who did everybody have at 8? And then let's hash it out. I had Jesper Bratt at 8.
I had Marner. I had Marner at 8.
I had Matt Boldy at 8. I know.
Okay.
I know. Look, the Minnesota Wild are a good team, and I think they're going to continue to progress. If that center core can hold up, right? If Marco Rossi and Joel Eriksson Ek can take another step, it's just going to add to everybody around him, right? Like if Zuccarello can stay as he should be, like Matt Boldy, like I feel like he's right there. He's right there, but he's not there just yet. But the upside is intriguing to me. And I also think the Minnesota Wild, while they may be a better team, they're going to need to play a little bit of catch-up hockey some nights. So that's good for guys who need to play a lot. I also, like Matt Boldy, to me, he's got a spot on the top power play unit. It's, you know, and if at some point they want to move him up, put Kirill on one side and then Boldy on the other, there's so many opportunities here. I just like the upside here. And I think Kirill gets a lot of love and Matt Boldy gets a little bit forgotten there. So if I'm going to take the upside on a player who could score 40, it's him. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
There you go. And who'd you have at 8?
I had Marner at 8 because he's on the top line with Matthews. Even playing 69 games, still was able to score 26 goals and had 59 assists. And the fact that he's a free agent next year, same thing with Rantanen, although not the same type of player. But the fact that he is going to be a free agent, I'm pretty sure he wants to get the heck out of Toronto as quickly as possible. He might, you know, play his ass off. So I had him at 8, but I am not, you know, if you pick somebody else, I'm not going to be heartbroken over that.
All right, so I'm going to run through my last 3 here just so we could get those on the table. I had Brad at 8, Marner at 9, Clayton Keller at 10. So Ant's got Marner at 8. Chris, do you have Marner anywhere in your top 10?
I have him at 10. So I have Matt Boldy at 8. I have Wyatt Johnston at 9. And then I feel like I would have been prosecuted in the court of public opinion by Leaf fans if I didn't have Marner there. So I put him in the 10 spot just because he's got to be there, right?
He's a top 10 right winger. I don't think
he's a top 10 right winger. It's just I don't like how this is going to go for Mitch Marner. And I don't like that, you know, even if you didn't want to talk about his contract, I don't care what you say. You're in the hottest market right now. So if he starts to slow down at any given point or it starts to get difficult, you know, it's tough.
Marek wants to know, where does Marner go after the season? I think that's a very interesting question. We got to see what happens here. We got to see what happens, at the deadline and then at the draft. But there's a lot of places he could go, but he's going to cost over $10 million. So it's got to be somebody that's willing to fork over that kind of cap space. So, all right. So it sounds to me like we should probably throw Marner 8th here, since we have a consensus of him remaining in the last 3 picks. So I think that makes sense here. Let's see here. So we're going to throw Marner there at 8. Now we get to 9. Now, I revealed that I had Bratt and Keller as my last 2. I can be convinced. Here's the thing. Adrian Kempe, Wyatt Johnston, Andrei Svechnikov, Cole Caulfield, Timo Meier, even, you know, Boldy. These are all guys you can make arguments for in these last 3 spots, and you're not wrong. We're in that tier of right wings where there's a wide variety of, get one of these guys, you're okay. Maybe if a lot of these guys are available, you can maybe wait on right wing at this point. So we're going to have Marner 8th, but now it's time to figure out who we're going to put 9th.
I had at 9, I had Brock Besser.
Okay.
Top line with JT Miller, 40 goals, had 33 assists there. And then at 10, I had Clayton Keller, but he's probably going to play more left wing on that top line with, I think it's Hayton and Schmaltz. So if I had to change anything, maybe it is putting Wyatt Johnston in top 10, especially with not knowing how healthy Jason Robertson's going to be. So he's going to be relied upon on that top line a whole lot.
I like that Wyatt Johnston is going to play the wing, even though I think he can play center. I think that just takes a little bit of responsibility off him. Let Roope Hintz handle all that. Let a centerman handle it. If he has to move down the lineup or he has to take a face-off, right? Kind of like Joe Pavelski. He could take face-offs, but that's not what he's there to do. You want to play to his strengths. I can live if you put like Bratt at 9 and Wyatt Johnston at 10 or vice versa or anything like that. I could also live with Adrian Kempe being there. The rest of them, I'm kind of just like, the thing with like Seth Jarvis and Svechnikov, like he throws more hits. So if you're in a league where hits maybe matter a little bit more, I think that comes into play. Caulfield, I'm just not sure if he can hit the number of goals that we think he is. I think Montreal's gonna have a really strong top line, but I don't know if they're gonna like have an explosion of goals and where Caulfield can score like 40. I think he's more of a 35 goal scorer right now and maybe pushes the envelope a little bit more. If Lafreniere could get any power play time on the top power play unit, he would have been here. But Peter Laviolette refuses to let me have nice things. So,
as a Devils fan, I think I need one more year from Jesper Bratt to buy into the top 10. I don't know if I'm there just yet, but I will be drafting him in my fantasy leagues. I just don't know if he is. I think there are a couple of better players out there. The Johnsons, maybe Kempe as well. He adds, hits to that. Even Cole Caulfield, I think could be top 10 over Jesper Bratt. I just am not 100% sold on him being in the top 10 just yet.
Here I am, a Ranger fan. Never thought I'd be selling a Devil to a Devils fan, but hey, there we go. So looking at his last 3 years, so 2021-22 starts to become a good player, 26 goals, 47 assists. In that year where the Devils got to the second round and they just were lighting the lamp constantly, 32 goals, 40 assists. So he's growing. He's on the right projection. Then last year, just this floor falls out from the Devils. Not a good year. Still manages 27, career high 56 assists. Now he's playing on the line with Nico Hischier, and it looks like Andre Palat will be the left wing on that line. So I'm thinking he's going to break 30 goals again for sure. If he was able to put up 56 assists last year when they were getting more attention because Hughes was hurt for a chunk of the season, Timo Meier was playing, probably not even at 80%. So now this year, a healthy Hughes playing with Timo Meier, which is healthy, they're going to start getting top line attention. I think that's going to open up even more for Bratt. So that's my argument to throw him in the top 10. But I've got no problems leaving him out for Clayton Keller, like you said, Wyatt Johnston, even Adrian Kempe. Those would be guys I would consider putting there too. So we got 2 spots left here. What are we going to say for 9?
Wyatt Johnston. That's my vote.
Oh, I agree with that.
Wyatt Johnston's kind of been one of the unofficial mascot players of our mock drafts over the last 8 weeks or so here. So let's throw him in. He deserves a spot there. So he's going to be our number 9 spot. Now we got 1 spot to go here, which means we got to start getting ready for our mock draft here. So let's take a quick pause here. Let me figure out what we're going to do for the league here. We got I think we can be ready to rock in 8 minutes. So let's see here. I'm going to pick my spot first.
What we've learned from this right here, this top 10, is that the right wings are stacked. I mean, you're not going, like, if you decide not to, take a right wing, from the first 3 here, and you're going to get something good no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, so right now, I think we've got a pretty good list here. Why don't one of you guys start making the argument here people in the conversation? Jesper Bratt, Clayton Keller, Matt Boldy. Who are we going to blackball any of these guys, or somebody we could be like, all right, let's leave them out of the conversation? I know you made your argument for not Jesper Bratt. So, Chris, make the argument for or against.
I am for Jesper Bratt. I think the fact that it's a contract year as well, it's just, I don't know what's in the water in the contract year, man. They're built different that year. That's just, the water tastes better. The cookies are softer or chewier. So I am okay with that. If I were to make a case for someone I wouldn't put there, it would be Clayton Keller. As much as I love him, I just don't know what we're going to get out of Utah. That's still a team that looks very similar up front. They're still young, they're still growing. The whole change and everything. I want my pick to be sure at this point. I feel like I could get Keller later in drafts and get even better value for him. I think he's a top 15 right winger. I don't think he's a top 10 though.
All right, fellas, you see the link in the chat there. Let's make sure we're all ready to rock in the mock draft there. If you're in the chat and you want to participate, please, by all means, jump on in. We're doing a 12-teamer today, so it's going to take a little time, but we will get
Silver Fox is back this week, it looks like.
He sure is, and excited to see him in the room there. The draft is going to start here in 6 minutes, so we've got 6 minutes to figure out who our number 10 is. I see Chris in the chat. I see Chris in the room. I see Anthony in there. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots left here. So I'm gonna make my Ant, who would you put 10 while I get this out on Twitter here?
If we're gonna leave out Clayton Keller, which I'm not upset about because I had him at 10 and I was a little about it. If we're gonna leave out Clayton Keller, I'm still going with Brock Boeser.
The injuries don't worry you though?
I mean, any of these guys can get injured, right?
I mean, that's fair. Yeah.
True. But I feel like with Boeser, you're almost signing up for 60 to 65 games right off the bat. I feel like that's going to be your high watermark for him. So he's a guy that, like, if he's still sitting there at a certain point, like, all right, this is too good to turn down. I got to take him. But, you know, to me, I don't know. The way you're not ready to put Bratt in the top 10, his injury concerns is enough to keep him out of the top 10 for me.
What about Cole Caulfield then? Come on, Chris.
I would love to have Cole Caulfield there. I know that, you know, with the kind of the growth of Uri Slafkovsky, I think he could score more goals. Slafkovsky, I think the addition of Patrick Laine is good. A healthy Kirby Dach. It's not all about Caulfield anymore. So, and which is a good thing from a team perspective. Do I think Caulfield could get more points this year? Yes. Do I think he's going to explode for like 40 goals and like 40 assists? Probably not. So I think there's a little bit more. Yes, there'll be more space for him, but I also think there's going to be more options for him. So he's not just going to be the de facto kind of guy who's just going to be slinging it from the left side one-timer anymore, because you can have different players set up there now. Like, you have more weapons. So I want him to be there. I want him to get there. I think he is probably a 35 goal scorer. Maybe he adds 30 assists. And if he gets 65 points, that's not a bad year for him. That's not a bad year at all. 65 points, I can find that. Right? I think like Jesper Bratt had 56 assists alone. You know what I mean? And I feel like the Devils have a better offensive group right now. So like that's why I would put Jesper Bratt there, regardless of whether he gets hurt or not. Like, you know, Caulfield's not a big guy either. He could easily get smashed, and that ends everything.
I think if Timo Meier didn't get hurt last year, he may be the one that's in this conversation for that final.
Timo Meier's fault. He should have been better.
Yeah, well, if his legs were in better shape last year, he'd be probably in this list, probably over Bratt. Bratt's one of those guys where when I was doing all these mocks and I see him going, and I'm like, I feel like that's a little early for him. And then when you do a little bit of a deeper digging, like, oh no, he's so. You know, I was a guy that had to like turn the corner on him. So I think we're okay putting him in the top 10 there. We got a couple of minutes to go before the draft. So we got 4 minutes there before we kick things off with our 12-team mock here. We'll get a recap after that as well. So make sure it's our penultimate mock draft here. Let's go through our top 10 again. Nikita Kucherov, Mikko Rantanen, David Pastrnak, Matthew Tkachuk, Zach Hyman, William Nylander, Sam Reinhart, Mitch Marner, Wyatt Johnston, and Jesper Bratt, filling out our top 10 right wings here. So there we go. Not too bad. We did it. We went through all the positions, fellas.
We did.
We had some good arguments here for some individuals.